So I'm now going to take you through how to install a 3-phase mains, 3-phase solar unit. Assess the area around the switchboard for a suitable place within 2 metres of the switchboard to mount the unit. So right now I've gone on the left of the switchboard. Mark and drill mounting holes in the unit cover and drill mounting holes and 25mm holes for switchboard entry in a suitable location. Run 4 times current clamp, labelled at both ends for identification. For example, 1, 2, 3 for the mains and 4 for the solar, and a suitably sized twin and earth cable to match the rating of the circuit breaker being used to power the unit. Not smaller than 1.5mm squared cable is to be used. Also use mechanical protection where required, for example corrugated conduit. Please note the current clamps must be run with the current clamp end in the switchboard and the Molex heads in the unit. As you can see, as this is a test unit, we have some extra cables which we'll be ignoring for this section. Just noting, if it is an internal install and the weatherproof case is not necessary, you would drill and mark the mounting holes for the black unit only. Terminate the twin and earth at the unit into the main terminal provided. Terminate the twin and earth at the switchboard into a suitably rated breaker. I'd like to point out that the suitably rated breaker, you must take note of which phase that breaker is connected to. Using a phase rotation meter, identify the phase rotation is either standard or non-standard. As this is a demo board and there's no voltage present, I'm going to be taking this to be a standard phase rotation for the purpose of this installation. Now, in order to correctly identify which phase the breaker is, it is suggested that you use a multimeter to determine the phase, and you should be looking for 0 potential between the correct phase active on the main switch and the correct phase, the correct active on the circuit breaker you're connecting to. This will be important later on for current clamp connection. You can now clamp the mains active clamps around the main actives, starting with the same phase the unit is powered from. So in this case, I've powered off the lighting circuit, which I previously determined is connected to white phase. So it is important that I connect current clamp number 1 around the white phase. I can now connect the second current clamp around the next phase in the phase rotation sequence, which we're taking as standard. Therefore, the second current clamp will be clamped around the blue phase. I'm now going to connect the last current clamp onto the last phase available, which is the red phase. We're now going to clamp the solar clamp around the solar active. It is important to take note that we have powered off the white phase and we have clamped the first mains active clamp around the white phase. Therefore, when clamping around the solar, you must clamp the single solar clamp around the white phase also. We use 1 solar clamp to clamp around 3-phase solar because every solar inverter has a balanced output, and we will multiply these readings later on in the commissioning process. Plug the first current clamp labelled 1 into the port labelled phase 1. It is important that this phase is the same phase as you have clamped current clamp 4, the solar clamp, around. For example, if you have clamped this around white phase and powered the unit from the white phase, you must have selected a white phase for the solar current clamp to clamp around on the solar mains active. Plug current clamp labelled 2 into the port labelled phase 2. Plug the current clamp labelled 3 into the port labelled phase 3. It is important that these current clamps match the phase rotation for the mains. Plug the current clamp labelled 4, the solar current clamp, into phase 4. It is important that this solar clamp has been clamped around the same phase as the clamp 1 mains clamp has been clamped around, which is also the same phase that the unit has been powered from. It is important that you install the current clamps in the same order as the phase rotation. If the phase rotation has been measured as standard, you need to install the current clamps in a standard 1, 2 and 3 position. If the current phase rotation is non-standard, they must be installed to suit. With the unit's main switch in the off position, turn the battery switch into the on position. The light at the side of the unit should come on. Now you can turn off the battery switch and turn on the main switch. Using a multimeter, test for 240 volts across active and neutral at the main terminal. As this is a test unit and there's no power active, I cannot display the 240 volts. After you have registered 240 volts at the main terminal, you can turn back on the battery switch and leave in the on position. You are now ready to test and commission the unit. To test and commission the unit, see Testing and Commissioning section of the installer manual. Once the unit is successfully tested and commissioned, seal any holes made in the unit with silicone to maintain the IP rating of the unit, and seal any switchboard holes with fire rated sealant.